Yeah, good evening once again. There was some interruption in between. So I hope this is now again visible to all of you, the green screen.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Fine. So let me now again briefly recapitulate what we're discussing. So I was discussing with all of you about the sources of borrowing for the government, in fact. And then I discussed that there are two sources, internal and external. Internal we have to discuss shortly, and then I was discussing about external, and then I discussed about that one of the sources is international monetary institutions also provide funding or the aid or loan to the government of India as well. All right, and that is one source of revenue or money for the government. Another one is also the foreign aid, and they was discussing about ODA. So ODA is a special program that is launched by Japan government, and under this, India has been the oldest beneficiary of the Japanese ODA program, and the Japanese government has been providing the money for the government of India at a very cheaper interest rate. All right, that's the reason why it is just like an aid. All right, and obviously that's what actually we have to understand. And I was giving you the example also that recently the project that the government of India had launched, especially in the context of the bullet train project of connecting Ahmedabad to Mumbai. Now that is also being funded by the Japanese government at a almost you can say a throwaway interest rate, in fact, in that way. So that is one way of providing the foreign aid to the government of India by the Japanese government these days. That's going on, in fact. All right, and that's the reason why precisely I was giving you example that why this year in the on the day of our Republic Day, the government of India had announced the highest civilian award, in which even Shinzo Abe, the ex PM of Japan, was also awarded Padma Vibhushan, that's the second highest civilian award from Indian government. So that is exactly why you need to understand why, because here, of course, the government of India has been receiving the assistance from Japanese government in last couple of years at a tremendous rate. That is what actually is the indication that is coming from the bonhomie that was there between the Indian Prime Minister and Shinzo Abe, the ex-Prime Minister of Japan. Fine. That is one aspect of foreign aid, in fact. Then you have another aspect that is we also get the money in the form of grant, which is, of course, doesn't come under any liability, in fact. All right. That is also one form of money that India receives, but that's not a borrowing, in fact, in that way. All right. So grant is a money that does not owe any liability to pay back. Fine. That is without any payment repayment liability. So obviously it is not a part of borrowing, but it is also one of the sources of revenue for the government. That's what you have to keep in mind. Fine. The government if it also receives grant. For example, let's say Microsoft, Bill Gates. So Bill Gates also provide huge grant to the government of India, especially for running many of the underprivileged schools, many of the underprivileged, you can say, institutions in India. That's another form of money that Indian government receives, in fact. All right. That is one aspect of looking into this. Then second is, or next is the foreign countries. So the foreign countries also provide a good sum of money, a good amount of money to the government of India, either in the form of a loan, all right, or aid, and also a grant at times. Fine. So aid is something that comes with the list of the conditions. All right. Loan is something that comes with the conditions always. All right. So you should take a loan. It comes always with the conditions. All right, and conditions as per the term of the loanee. All right, those who actually are offering you the loan. So conditions as per the terms of the loan provider, in fact. All right. Whereas aid is something where you have list of the conditions associated with the money. That is also coming from the foreign country. And then you also have a form of grant coming from the foreign countries. This is also one of the sources of the government borrowing, fine, that we have. Fine. So you can see these all sources have been there, but largely we have to discuss about this source. All right, because that is what is going to matter a lot for us. Fine. Today, idea is, let me tell you one thing. Today, idea is that Indian government external borrowing, that is sovereign debt, that is called as sovereign debt. Now it is not so high the way it used to be. All right, today government of India does not borrow frequently the money from these institutions. In fact, all right. So today government of India has no any monetary liability to pay to these institutions. Fine, that's actually the advantage. But the sovereign debt is also in the form of the, you can say, the government of India taking loan from some other countries. So that is one form of sovereign debt and still there. Fine, but that is not so high the way it was earlier before 1990s. In fact, fine. So this is high. This is high for the government of India. That's a matter of concern. In fact, fine. Let us discuss this internal aspect largely. In fact, now see, in internal aspect, the government of India has been borrowing money largely from RBI. That has been the major practice because there RBI used to also, of course, take the money from the banks or in fact the market on the behalf of the government of India. That used to be the process of borrowing in India. Now, this is a very common process, but one of the processes the borrowing is that what we are going to depict in front of you. Now, see here. Now, see, this was the most dominant practice of borrowing of the government of India since 1950s onwards till 1996, I would say. Now, this practice was being followed in India. And what is this practice? You can see on your screen. The practice was the government of India used to print the special type of treasury bills that is called as ad hoc treasury bills, or in fact, ad hoc government securities. All right. So ad hoc government security. Now, what is ad hoc government securities? See, ad hoc or ad hocism is simply a particular process that is that is being conducted or being used for a specific purpose. Once the purpose is served, ad hocism is to be finished. That's what actually is the concept of ad hoc. Now, here the same idea was there. The government of India used to issue or used to print, I would say, the government securities, which was ad hoc government securities, and it had only one purpose. Purpose was to take money from the RBI. All right. And you can see on your screen how the money used to be taken from the RBI. The government used to issue the ad hoc treasury bills or the ad hoc government securities. And on behalf of that, RBI was supposed to print new currencies. All right. RBI was supposed to print new currencies, and these new currencies used to go into the account of the government. And this used to be a very common practice in India. Now, see, in this practice, of course, the government used to receive money, what the government used to, demanded, and then accordingly, the government used to spend the same money later in the market because, of course, money is not going to be there in the pocket of the government. It has to be spent in the market either for the developmental activities or for the maintenance activities. For any of these activities, the money had to be spent in the market. All right, either for the developmental or maintenance activities. So finally, the money is going to be spent there in the market itself. Fine. Now, in this system, of course, this new currencies, which used to be given by the RBI to the government, they used to also flow down into the economy. Now, this practice used to lead, or rather, it used to generally lead towards a high liquidity in the market, increase of liquidity in the market, and by this, of course, there used to be always a mismatch between demand and supply in the Indian economy. Because with the high of liquidity, or you can say increase of liquidity, demand used to always gets increased. It used to always get increase, or in fact, there was always an increment in the demand side in comparison to the supply side. So, of course, with this, it used to lead a kind of inflationary situation always there in the economy. All right, inflationary situation always there in the economy. Now, you just let me tell you one thing, that what has happened recently uh, in the context of few economies. I'm giving you some examples of few economies. Let's say very recently, economy of Venezuela. I don't know how many of you know about it, but in Venezuela, the economy was almost on a, you can say, on a ride. In fact, why? Because the inflation in Venezuela was hovering around more than 1,000%. So now you can imagine sort of a pencil which is costing rupee one in India. In Venezuela, it used to cost rupees 1,000 in that way. So it was 1,000% that was inflation that was hovering around there in Venezuela. All right, just a few months back. Similarly, just a couple of years back also, similar condition was also prevailing in the economy of Zimbabwe. All right. So in Zimbabwe also there was a inflation of even 1 lakh percent, not 1,000, 1 lakh percent. So now you can understand what is this 1 lakh percent. I mean the item that you consume at rupee one, then in Zimbabwe they used to purchase the same item at rupees 1 lakh. In other words, the value of currency had declined so much that the currency value or the local currency value had no value as such in the international market. Fine. So that was the condition of Zimbabwe. So you can understand people out there in Zimbabwe, or the children out there in Zimbabwe, could have also used the same currency to make a kite, and then they can fly it out as a game of kite playing. So that was a condition there in Zimbabwe. So now you can understand that what will happen if you do not apply a common sense in terms of understanding the nuances of issuing the new currencies in the market. So one of the nuances is absolutely that if it is not matching with the supply side, if it is not matching with the you said that the kind of demand that is there for good, and you are not improving the supply side, then what will it lead to? It will lead to, of course, a very galloping inflation. It is called as galloping inflation. All right, it increases by 100%. In fact, so it is today, let's say 10% to multiply 100%. They have to multiply 1,000%. So it is galloping. All right. So idea is this is how it will lead to a galloping inflation in your economy, and that exactly has been also one of the concerns of the Indian economy right from the beginning. And I told you, of course, a concept of monetized deficit. Now, this exactly was monetized deficit. So how the government used to fund their monetized deficit? Through printing new currencies. And this has been the practice in India till 1996. Fine. Now, this practice was something which used to be a very favorite practice of the government of India in terms of borrowing of money from the RBI. Fine. So, this borrowing used to lead to monetized deficit in the economy. That is basically inflationary condition there was prevailing in the economy continuously. Continuously. Now, this practice was finally abolished. And this was the biggest reform in the borrowing of the government of India after 1991. So what was that? In 1997, Ways and Means Advances was introduced. WMA. Now, Ways and Means Advances concept was introduced in 1997 for the first time in India. Fine. And what was this concept? This concept was something similar to what we have just understood, but slightly different in practice. Of course, here the government has to borrow money from the RBI. Fine. And in the earlier case, the government used to offer the ad hoc treasury bill. Here, the treasury bill will not be ad hoc. It will be permanent treasury bill. That's one thing. Secondly, here the RBI will not print new currency. So new currency printing will be stopped. So new currencies printing will be stopped, and here the old currency or already existing currency with the RBI will be given as a loan to the government. And this will be given as a loan to the government, in fact. And this loan is given at a high interest rate equal to the bank rate. So interest rate that is equal to the bank rate, at that rate, this loan will be given, and this loan is given by the RBI to address their daily mismatches of the government account. Fine. So now you see, I mean, the daily mismatches simply means that daily deficit of the government was being addressed, or it is still being addressed by the RBI, because RBI is the central bank of the government of India also. Fine. So by that logic, also RBI has to look after the government finance or the government accounting system. In fact, so RBI, since it is the central bank of the government of India, it has to also look after the government financing capacity. So thereby, that particular function itself makes RBI to also ensure that there is a regular supply of currencies to the government, so that the government should not actually face any difficulty in payment of for the staffs, for the employees, for the government employees inside the system, and also payment of any particular developmental projects of the government of India. So what RBI does, RBI on a daily basis, in fact, RBI offers loan to the government of India, and that loan is given on the basis of the permanent treasury bill. And I told you, treasury bill is basically a sort of instrument that is applied for a short-term money. So in other words, it is a short-term loan, it's not a long-term loan. But but the interest rate that is charged upon this short-term loan is quite high. It is just like a bank rate, which is a long-term loan. All right. So now you understand, this is a system under which, of course, the government was allowed to borrow money, but it had to be for the short term period. First thing. Secondly, interest rate would be high. Thirdly, it was a process to discourage the government to borrow money from the RBI. All right. So it was a process to discourage the government to borrow money from the RBI, and this principle is applied to both the central and the state governments. Because even the state governments are also eligible to borrow money from the RBI. They're still eligible to borrow money from the RBI, but they can only borrow money if at all they are ready to pay high interest rate to the RBI. If not, then they will find out some other means for, of course, addressing their advance shortage or money shortage to the government account. So you can see the name itself suggests you it's a ways and means advances. It simply means there are another way also. There are another means also through which RBI can offer a loan to you, but you should be prepared to offer, or you should be prepared to give a high interest rate to the RBI. Now, because of this only, the government may borrow or rather can borrow from RBI still, but today government resorts it at the last resort, or takes as the last resort to money to borrow money from the RBI like this particular fashion. Therefore, this process has almost eliminated the system of monetized deficit in India. So monetized deficit problem has been eliminated from the country. So today the inflation that is caused in India is not because of the printing of new currencies of RBI, which used to be also one of the one of the you can say reasons behind inflations before 1996 in India, or rather 1997 in India. Today, inflation is caused because of other reasons, not because of this reason that RBI is printing new currencies, and because of that, there is inflation. All right. So it's not like that. So in this way, you see that what this method did. This method on one hand allowed the government to borrow money. On the other hand, it also discouraged government to borrow money. Now, once it was done, it compelled the government to find out some other sources of raising revenue for itself. And there comes the role of the Public Debt Management Authority, PDMA, that we discussed briefly that at a point of time. All right. So the idea is that it promoted or it motivated the government to find out some other ways to borrow money. Now, what is the other way to borrow money? Let me give the other ways to borrow money. One way that we have already discussed, that is open market operation. That's a very favorite method now through which the government borrows money. Open market operation. Now, what is open market operation? We have discussed it. Under this, what is basically done? The government shares are sold by RBI to the scheduled commercial banks, and through this, they receive the money and they get the money. Fine, this money comes to RBI and finally goes to the government account. That is one way of course, selling the shares, and through this, you are also collecting the money from the scheduled commercial banks. That's one way. Second way is the government also offers the government bonds in open market. And here the financial institutions which are not bound by OMO. I told you that why a financial institution will be bound by OMO? Because I told you that they have to maintain a minimum amount of securities under SLR. मैंने सब कॉन्सेप्ट समझाया था आपको कि क्यों एक बैंक जो है ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन में इन्वेस्ट करेगा, क्योंकि बैंक को लीगली कॉम्प्लाई करना है एसएलआर को भी। तो चूंकि एसएलआर को लीगली कॉम्प्लाई करना है, तो एनी हाउ उसको एक मिनिमम अमाउंट ऑफ जो है जो पैसा है, जो कैपिटल है, वो उसको शेयर के रूप में रखना है, गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटी के रूप में रखना है। तो जैसे ही उसको गवर्नमेंट सिक्योरिटीज के रूप में रखना पड़ेगा, जो कि लीगली वो कॉम्प्लाइड है, बाउंड है, तो ऑब्वियसली ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन में वो इन्वेस्ट करेगा, और करते हैं बैंक इसी कारण से। तो सिस्टम ऐसा बना दिया गया है कि जिसमें बैंक ना चाहते हुए भी इट हैज टू गो फॉर ओपन मार्केट ऑपरेशन। ठीक है, और इसमें क्या है कि ऑफ कोर्स इट्स ऑल अबाउट इकोनॉमिक्स। ऑफ कोर्स इवन द बैंक्स विल बी रिसीविंग सम बेनिफिट, बट आफ्टर सम पीरियड ऑफ टाइम। All right, after some period of time, that is about the maturity period of that particular government securities. All right, so the government bonds are also sold in the open market, where other than the banks, the other financial institutions, let's say LIC, let's say UTI, now they are not the banks, they are not complied with the open market operation. ठीक है, उनको एसएलआर मेंटेन नहीं करना होता है। तो LIC है या बाकी यूटीआई है या और भी जो फाइनेंशियल इंस्टीट्यूशन, जो कि मान लीजिए कि मुथूट फाइनेंस आपको बता रहा हूँ, प्राइवेट इंस्टीट्यूशन है, तो इवन दे आर फ्री आल्सो टू इन्वेस्ट इन द गवर्नमेंट बॉन्ड्स। सो द गवर्नमेंट आल्सो इश्यूज देयर ओन बॉन्ड्स इन द ओपन मार्केट, and through that also they raise money. Fine, so that is done within the country. But suppose if Indian government raises the bond, rather issues the bonds outside the country, then now in that way, that's also one of the processes of raising money which actually has developed in last couple of decades in India. For example, these days a popular term is there, that's masala bonds. Masala bonds, have you heard about it? मसाला बॉन्ड्स सुना आप लोगों ने? Anyone? What is मसाला?
रुपी डिनोमिनेटेड बॉन्ड होता है।
हाँ, सही है, बिल्कुल सही है, बिल्कुल सही है। तो देखिए, अमृतांशु has rightly explained, it's a rupee denominated bonds. Now, what do you mean by rupee denominated bonds? See, normally what happens when you raise your or rather when you issue your bonds in offshore market, overseas market, obviously in overseas market people will invest in dollars, so you will receive money in dollars. That is one thing. But after a period of time, let's say the maturity period of the bond, when you have to pay back the money to the buyer of that particular bond, you also have to pay money to them in the form of their currencies, that is dollar. Fine. But in masala bond, difference lies here. In masala bond, you can raise capital in the foreign currencies, but you are not bound to pay them in the foreign currencies. You can pay them in your own rupee denominated currencies, or rupee currency, in fact. So people who are involved in the export import activities, or people who are involved, let's say, in the international transaction activities, they are interested in investing in masala bonds because of high interest rate. But they receive money only in the rupee form. So therefore, they will have to again reuse that money in terms of importing some goods from India. So masala bonds are one of the instruments, one of the financial instruments which actually help an economy not only in raising initial capital, but also promoting your export. Fine. So in the similar, this is a concept promoted by World Bank only, IFC, one of the arms of World Bank, that is International Financial Corporation, Finance Corporation. Now that actually has promoted this particular concept of masala bond. Fine. So masala bond is, with these days it actually has become popular, but obviously there are other form of bonds also. For example, let's say dim sum bonds. Dim sum bonds, samurai bonds. All right. Penguin bonds. So now you see, I mean, these terms actually have become quite popular these days. These all are the instruments of raising foreign capital by the domestic economy. For example, dim sum bonds. Now, dim sum bonds are issued by the Chinese economy. All right, and they actually, there are Chinese currency denominated bonds, that is renminbi or renminbi. So of course, renminbi or yen, what you say. So they are the Chinese denominated currencies bonds which are issued in the overseas market. It's called as dim sum bonds. Similarly, Japan also issues the samurai bonds. So in Japan, they issue samurai bonds to raise overseas capital. Penguin bonds are raised, or in fact are issued in Pakistan, but only by China. All right. So China has issued penguin bonds for Pakistan for raising capital for Pakistan-based infrastructure projects, in fact. All right. That is penguin bond. So this exactly is the method of raising foreign capital and paying back into your own currencies. In fact, that's actually the benefit of issuing these bonds. So that's what actually even the government of India can also do by issuing masala bonds. All right. And of course, since 2016, when this concept was introduced, Indian government has received substantial investment also in masala bonds. That is one way of also raising money from the overseas market. Fine. But overall, you need to understand that now the system is such in which the government is discouraged to take money from the RBI as a loan. So it can only happen, or rather, it only happens when there's no other alternative for the government in terms of raising capital or actually having capital with the government. For example, let's say recently the government of Telangana, of course, Telangana is a recently constitutional state. So, of course, Telangana government needed a huge capital to build up the capital city and other infrastructure. And for that, they needed money. But the money was not there with the government of Telangana. So here, of course, RBI, they approached RBI. So RBI offered them that there's only one provision through which you can raise money from RBI. And that is, of course, ways and means advances, WMA. So through WMA, you can take loan. But when Telangana government came to know that the WMA interest rate is quite high, that is equal to bank rate, they backtracked. They denied, they rejected it, or they said that no, we will not be going for raising money through WMA of RBI because it's very costly. Then what government of Telangana did, what we have just understood in the context of issuing the government bonds. So Telangana government issued bonds, and through that only they are raising money currently also. So they are not asking RBI to pay loan or to give loan under the WMA concept, but that option is open for them, but with a condition of course, paying a high interest rate, that is bank at the bank rate. So they are preferring to raise money. Government of Telangana is preferring to raise money from the other scheduled commercial banks directly by issuing their own bonds to the SCBs, because they receive this of course money from the SCBs at a cheaper interest rate than what it is there in the WMA concept. Fine. So through this, only one advantage is there, that is at least the market does not get disturbed through the government borrowing. Otherwise, if the government borrowing increases tremendously, then the market may also get disturbed. And even in the context of OMO, let me tell you one thing. Even under the OMO, I mean, once the government goes for an excessive OMO practice, the markets do get disturbed. It's not like the markets do not get any disturbance. No, even the markets also get disturbed, because with this particular process, what happens? The Indian banking system, they face a concept of double financial reparation system. This concept was asked in 2014. Double financial reparation system. Now, what is double financial reparation system? Of course, double financial reparation system is that at one hand, the banks are asked to invest money under the open market operation. On the other hand, the banks are also asked to keep a minimum of SLR always. So by this logic, of course, the bank's ability to lend money into the market gets reduced. So at one hand, open market operation is there. Another hand, SLR is to be maintained always. So both this process leads to double financial reparation in economy. Fine. So that is with the banking system in India. So banks also have suffered due to these two practices tremendously imposed by the government. So see, I mean, this is how the government actually has been given the option of borrowing. But today the government is preferring this method more of borrowing from the market. Fine. That is how the government goes for borrowing of money. Fine. In the earlier method, the consequences were very extreme, and that's the reason why those method had been now abolished. So today, the government of India does not issue any ad hoc treasury bills and does not get the money from the RBI by printing new form of currencies. All right. RBI does print the currencies, but it is only on the basis of the RBI's own calculation, own method of calculation of circulation of money in the market, and accordingly, the increase in GDP in the economy. So it tries to bring a balance between the GDP and the money circulation there in the market. So in that way, RBI issues new currencies in the market, not on the basis of what government of India asks RBI to do that. All right, so that practice has been now stopped. ठीक है, तो ये है public debt policy. So this was the major reform in the public debt policy, and now you see this policy actually reform has brought a sort of a balance in the economy. Fine, that is all about public debt policy. Now I'm entering into the next segment, that is the budgeting policy reform. Now you see what is a budget. Well, let me tell you one thing at the outset, that budget is the horoscope for the country. It is the financial horoscope for the country, and that is precisely the reason that why budget becomes very important for every section of society, be it rich, poor, and of course the millionaires, billionaires, even for the middle class, budget always becomes a hot topic to be discussed. It is given a wide coverage also by media. So that's the reason that precisely why budget actually has become an integral part of course, Indian economy as well and world's economy also, in fact. So budget is a financial horoscope for the nation. It is not only a financial document because normally, as a layman, it is understood as a financial document. But for us, it is the horoscope for the nation. Now, what do you mean by horoscope for the nation? See, horoscope simply indicates that you can predict, you can guess, you can, of course, understand the trend of the economy for the next financial years. So, therefore, budget is, of course, understood by many economists and the scholars from the public administration side that it is primarily a horoscope for the nation. ठीक है? तो बजट से क्या होता है कि सिर्फ फाइनेंशियल डॉक्यूमेंट या फाइनेंशियल एस्पेक्ट ही पता नहीं चलता है. It discusses or it indicates about every dimension of a country, about its politics, about its culture, about its defense, about its education, about its health, about its culture promotion. So every aspects of a society is depicted or they are depicted through the budgetary proposal. So that is how the concept of budget is understood. Fine. Now this word called budget has been derived from the word called budget. The budget is actually originally a French word. All right, it's a French word which means a leather bag or a pouch. All right, and this word that is budget or budget as an anglicized word was used by the English people in Britain for the first time. All right, and Britain was the country which also introduced this concept of budget in India in 1860. So in 1860, the concept of budget was also introduced in India. Fine. And budget always gives us the detail of 3 financial years, not one financial year. It provides a detail of 3 financial years. For example, so 2021 budget has been proposed, which is going to give us the information about this financial year for obvious reasons that it is of 2021 budget. But it also gives us the information about the the achievement of Indian economy, partially, not fully, under the period of 2020-2021 and then 2019 to 2020. So 2020 to 2021, all right. So this 2021 is yet to get over. So that's what actually we also called as advanced estimate of a budget. This is a proposed estimate of the budget. This is the achieved estimate of the budget. All right. Now the detail about these two financial years, that is 1920, 2020, 2021 are given there in the document that is called as economic survey. So therefore, economic survey is the integral part of budget. Economic survey is not at all a separate part of budget. It is an integral part of budget only. And the budget that has been presented today, it is basically the financial year 2021-2022 that you understand. But these all financial years details are actually a part of the same concept of budget that you understand. Fine. So that is how we have to interpret the understanding about budget. So budget is not at all a detail of India's finances of only one financial year. It includes the detail of the last, in fact, 3 years, which includes the proposed year, the ongoing year, and the completed year. So this is the completed financial year. This is ongoing because still the month of March has not been over. And you need to know that India's government financial accounting system start from 1st of April to 31st of March. All right. So the current financial year is still on. It has not been completed. We are still on the 1st of February. So there are still 2 months to go to complete this financial year. Fine. And the new financial year will begin from 1st of April 2021. That 1st of April 2021 here, now that is the proposed estimate of the budgeting system. So the budget that you have understood, either you have gone through or you have seen today, it is about from 1st April 2021. And survey that has already been announced, that is actually about this, and that to the 3 months, not all. Only the three estimates that is there, 3 term estimate that is there in the economic survey. All right, the January to March estimate is not covered in economic survey. So this quarter estimate is not covered in economic survey. All right, so it is only 3 quarters estimates there in economic survey. Along with this, all 3 quarter. This is not covered here. All right, so this will be done only after next year. In fact, next financial year. That is the point. So this is technically you have to understand what is the concept of budget. Fine, and budget is always a very sensitive document. It is always a very not only sensitive but also very privileged document till it is not made public or it is not made open on the floor of the parliament. Fine. So till the time the budget is not open on the floor of the parliament, it is highly a sensitive and sacred document. Sacred document. And there's interesting story about budget. Another story, not I would say this is interesting practice about budget in India. And that is the people involved in the making of budget, especially the IRS officers and the other Group B service officers, they are not allowed to interact with anyone for almost 1.5 months. Because the last 1.5 months, they have not been even allowed to speak to anyone, and entire staffs, entire peoples, the entire people who are involved in this budget making process, either their phones are tapped or they are not allowed to move out from the compound of the North Block where the Ministry of Finance is located. All right. So there is a basement in the Ministry of Finance. In that basement, all the staffs, their place of arrangement also are made by the government. They have to stay there only. They're not even allowed to talk to their families. Such is the sacrosanctity that is maintained with the budget in India. So that's the reason I told you it's a highly sacred document. All right. So these staffs are kept there only, and there only they have to keep making the budget, preparing the budget for more than 1.5 months, in fact, I would say it that way. Fine. So that is how they maintain the sanctity of budget. Because if they speak to anyone, they might release any any information, regarding the budgetary proposal, and that may lead to a sort of a pressure politics in India. For example, let's say I tell you one example. Suppose if there's a proposal to impose any tax like GAFA. Have you heard about GAFA tax? What is that?
Google, Amazon, Facebook, Apple.
Yes. So it is basically the tax to be imposed upon the big corporate houses which are dealing in the digital world, or digital economy, right? So of course, suppose if there's a proposal to impose a GAFA tax in India, now obviously the moment it is released into the, or it is secretly released into the lot which are going to be impacted with the GAFA tax, probably they will start building pressure upon the government. They will start mobilizing their people, their pressure groups to convince the finance minister not to impose such kind of tax. All right. So this will create a pressure on the government in terms of releasing the document on the floor of the parliament. It will delay the entire process of making the budgeting system. That is precisely the reason why it is made as a secret document till the time it is open on the floor of the parliament. Fine. And of course, the practice of presenting a budget in India has always been with a leather bag. You may have seen also in the past, but of course, in last couple of years, this practice has been now been reformed. All right. Earlier, it was always a leather bag, but last year it was changed. All right. सरकार ने इसको बही खाता कह दिया. So that's how government has changed it. This time also the government has completely changed it, because this time the government has released the budget through the digital budgeting system. So they have not released any piece of paper, rather they have opened the budget on the digital platform. Or that is through laptop, or through, you can say, the system. They have released the budget and they have opened and discussed the budget on the floor of the parliament today. So that is how the changing practices have been there with the budget. ठीक है, तो ये बजट के बारे में थोड़ा सा information. Let's get into the budgeting policy reform. What is there in the budgeting policy reform? Now see, right from 1947 till 1967-68, India had been following a system of line item budgeting. In 67-68, performance budgeting concept was introduced. Then in 1984, 85, zero-based budgeting was also introduced. By 1987, it was withdrawn. In fact, 2004-5, not 3-4. In 2004-5, a concept of outcome budgeting system was introduced. And in 21-22, this concept of performance budgeting is still on, and this concept of outcome budgeting are still on. So today's budgeting system is a mix of both performance budgeting plus outcome budgeting. Now see, so one by one, I will discuss all these concepts. Starting with the line item budgeting. See, this was a concept introduced by the British government in India in the 1860. And even after India's independence, this concept continued. All right. Now you can understand why the Britishers introduced this concept of so-called line item budgeting. They must be having their own interest in launching it, because whatever Britishers did in India, now of course none of them, except you can say even socio-economic reforms, social reforms, uh, none of them was having no self-interest being served, or rather was serving for the Britishers at that point of time. So even the line item budgeting, it was introduced by the Britishers, and therefore under this also the Britishers had their own intention, their own motive, their own ill motive to be served in India. Because line item budgeting is a very simplistic form of budgeting. That's one thing. Secondly, under this budgeting system, there's a huge amount of control by the finance minister, or the person who controls the finance. Because under this system, there are more controls and checks than the freedom to operate. Fine. Now, what is this? I just give you one small example to make you understand clearly once for all. See, I believe that all of you may have done it. So, suppose when you were sent to pursue your higher academics or your college to some engineering institute or to some other technical institutes. So, obviously, when you were going away from your family for the first time in your life, you must have done this sort of budgeting. ठीक है, अब याद कीजिए अपने वो दिन, ज्यादा जब समय बीता भी नहीं होगा, तो कुछ दिन पहले ही शायद आप लोग निकले होंगे घर से बाहर, या कुछ साल पहले आप निकले होंगे घर से बाहर. So what you have done, you must have done some planning. ठीक है, suppose I give you some planning. Suppose you may have planned to come down to Delhi to prepare for civil service examination. So when you plan to come down to Delhi, what first thing may have struck you, or may have struck you in fact? So see, you may have thought, or you must have thought in fact, कि कहाँ रहेंगे? That's the very first thing must have come to your mind. That where will we stay? Fine. Second, obviously, कहाँ खाएंगे? What will we eat? All right. Thirdly, obviously, कहाँ पढ़ेंगे? All right. कहाँ पे एडमिशन लेना है, कौन सा कोर्स करना है, वगैरह वगैरह. फाइन. सो यू मस्ट हैव हैड दिस प्लानिंग. ठीक, एटलीस्ट दिस मच तो किया ही होगा सभी लोग. सो ऑब्वियसली हियर यू मे हैव सिलेक्टेड, ओके फाइन, हाउसिंग, आई विल स्टे देयर इन मुखर्जी नगर. सो आई विल स्टे देयर इन करोल बाग. सो करोल बाग गए, वहां देखे कि एक कमरा 15,000 से कम का नहीं है, तो प्लान चेंज कर दिया, प्लान बी में आ गए. कि प्लान बी क्या था कि अब मुखर्जी शिफ्ट कर जाते हैं, वहां पे 7,000 8,000 में मिल जाएगा कमरा एक. ठीक है, तो प्लान बी आ गया. डिपेंडिंग अपॉन योर फाइनेंशियल एबिलिटी, सो यू मे हैव फॉलो प्लान बी. सो प्लान बी में 8,000 रुपये आपने डिसाइड किया कि 8,000 से ज्यादा खर्च नहीं करना है एकोमोडेशन में. ठीक है, आपने ये प्लान अडॉप्ट किया. ईटिंग में भी प्लान ए बी दोनों होगा. एक होगा कि अच्छे होटल में खाना खा ले. ठीक है, एक होगा खुद से पका के खा ले. तो शुरुआत में शायद होगा कि चलो खुद से पका के खा लेते हैं. तो खुद से पकाए खाया, तो उसमें बजट सोचा होगा आपने कि यार फ्यूल पे जाएगा मान लीजिए कि 1,000 रुपया. ठीक है, मंथली. खाना पे जाएगा मान लीजिए 2,000 रुपया, और तो कुल मिला के 5,000 रुपया इस पे भी होगा खर्चा. ठीक है, एट द मैक्स. फाइन. अगर कुक रख लिया तो शायद 6,000 भी हो जाएगा. ठीक है, तो यू मे हैव डन दिस प्लानिंग ऑल्सो. फाइन. देन ऑफ कोर्स इट वुड हैव कम अबाउट एजुकेशन. कि यार वाजीराम जाएंगे तो 1,60,000 रुपया, है ना। एक्स वाई डिवीजन में जाएंगे तो 1,10,000 रुपया, कहीं और जाएंगे तो 70,000 रुपये में हो जाएगा काम। कहीं कहीं भी नहीं जाए, ऐसे ही पढ़ ले तो फ्री में हो जाएगा काम। तो आई मीन यू मे हैव डन दिस, आई मीन आई दिस वेरी कॉमन थिंग आई एम टॉकिंग अबाउट, एवरीवन डज इट। हम जो भी जब गए थे तो हम लोग ने यही किया था, ऐसा कुछ नहीं कि हम नया कुछ कर रहे हैं, बता रहे हैं आपको। सो ऑब्वियसली दिस मस्ट हैव आल्सो बीन देयर इन योर प्लानिंग, ठीक है। उसमें ये भी सोचा होगा आपने कि ऑफ कोर्स वन टाइम पेमेंट ऑफ फी एंड देन आल्सो मंथली एक्सपेंडिचर ऑन दैट। Monthly expenditure, let's say you may have planned of spending maybe 1,000 rupees every month on magazines, newspapers, all right, some books also, तो उसके भी प्लानिंग आपने किया होगा। फाइन। जब आप रूम लेते हैं तो रूम ऐसे ही मिल जाता है, अब उसमें बेड भी लगाना है, उसमें टेबल चेयर भी लगाना है। तो कुछ कुछ ऐसे लोग होते हैं कि टेबल चेयर पे नहीं पढ़ेंगे, लेट के ही पढ़ लेंगे, बेड पे सो के पढ़ लेंगे, पैसा बचेगा उसका भी, ठीक है। I'm sharing your my experiences also. When there were many people with me, so they all have had different type of experiences. So I'm sharing those experiences also. So of course, people also used to think कि यार टेबल चेयर क्यों पढ़ेंगे, जब आज तक पढ़ाई टेबल चेयर पे, तो अब टेबल चेयर पे कैसे पढ़ लेंगे, बेड पे लेट के ही पढ़ लिया करेंगे, ठीक है। सो ये भी प्लान किया होगा। या प्लान ऐसे भी होता है कि चलो बगल में लाइब्रेरी है, वहां जाके पढ़ लिया करेंगे, घर में टेबल चेयर क्यों खरीदे, ठीक है। सो ऑब्वियसली दिस ऑल प्लानिंग यू मे हैव डन इट, ठीक। तो आपने किया क्या होगा, मैं आपको सिंपल बताता हूँ कि आपने एक ऐसे चार्ट बनाया होगा। अगर आपने नहीं बनाया होगा तो आपके फादर ने बनाया होगा। मैं आपको बता देता हूँ। एक चार्ट बनाया होगा, उसमें आपने ऐसे लिखा होगा कि मुझे इतने आइटम्स चाहिए, ये आइटम्स चाहिए, इस आइटम्स पे मुझे इतना खर्च करना पड़ेगा, एक्सपेंडिचर ये चाहिए, ठीक है। तो आइटम नंबर 1 हुआ रूम, 2 हुआ रूम को झाड़ू करने के लिए झाड़ू, 3 हुआ बाल्टी, मग, ऑलराइट। यू मस्ट हैव कैलकुलेटेड कि इतना पैसा लगेगा रूम का, इतना पैसा लगेगा इसका, एंड देन फाइनली यू हैव कैलकुलेटेड ओके पर मंथ योर एक्सपेंडिचर इज समवेयर अराउंड 15,000 रुपीस मिनिमम, ठीक। ये मिनिमम है, ये आपको चाहिए होगा। इसके बियॉन्ड हो जाए तो वो अलग बात है, लेकिन इतना तो चाहिए होगा सर्वाइव करने के लिए, ठीक है। सब कटौती करने के बाद 15,000 रुपये आप आ गए। सो 15,000 इज योर बजट ऑफ पर मंथ, ठीक। So what you have done, you may have not known about it, but this is basically line item budgeting. All right. It is basically the concept of line item budgeting. So under line item budgeting, what you do, you simply list down the number of items which are required in a country and how much of money is to be spent on those items. You also list down that expenditure. Now beyond that, you don't go for that. All right. तो आपने अगर मान लीजिए कि 500 रुपया रखा है चेयर खरीदने के लिए, चेयर भले ही कंफर्टेबल क्यों ना हो, पैसा उसका 700 रुपया होगा तो आप नहीं खरीदेंगे। 500 में भले ही प्लास्टिक का चेयर खरीद के आप बैठ जाए, उसमें कमर दुख जाए, लेकिन आप वही खरीदेंगे, 500 का ही बजट है, ठीक है। दैट्स व्हाट एक्चुअली इज द पॉइंट, कि आपके साथ लिमिटेशन है बजट का। सेम ब्रिटिश सरकार के साथ भी था कि 700 रुपए में अच्छा चेयर मिल जाता है, लेकिन 500 रुपए ही खर्च करना है, उससे ज्यादा नहीं करना है। So exactly the same way the British government used to do line item budgeting in India. So they used to control the expenditure through this line item budgeting. They were hardly concerned about what is needed in India. They were concerned only about one thing, that how can they save money from India. All right. So that is basically a concept of line item budgeting. Fine. So in this concept, there are certain merits, but also there are certain demerits. Merits are obviously like that through this concept, you can easily control your expenditure. आपके कंट्रोल के बियॉन्ड में नहीं जाएगा एक्सपेंडिचर, ठीक है। आई नो वन ऑफ माई acquaintances was in Delhi, तो उनका एकदम कंट्रोल होता था एक्सपेंडिचर। ऑलराइट, ही वाज फ्रेंड ऑफ माय ब्रदर, तो ही यूज्ड टू ऑलवेज मेंटेन अ कंट्रोल एक्सपेंडिचर। उनके लिस्ट में लिखा होता था कि आज एक एप्पल खाना है, मैं फैक्ट नहीं बता रहा हूं। आज एक एप्पल खाना है तो मार्केट से एक ही एप्पल खरीदते थे। एक, आप शायद आधा किलो 1 किलो खरीदते होंगे, वो जानते कहते एक एप्पल चाहिए मुझे, और उस एक एप्पल को अभी सुबह में आधा खाना है, शाम को आधा खाना है। तो सुबह में वो आधा खाते थे और एल्यूमिनियम फॉइल से पैक करते थे, और शाम को उसी आधा एप्पल को खाते थे, और तब खाते थे जब कोई उनके यहां नहीं हो, ताकि शेयर न करना पड़े। समझ रहे हैं मेरी बात? So he used to eat apple at that point of time when there was no one around him. अगर कोई आ गया तो एप्पल उसी पैक रह जाएगा, खुलेगा नहीं। और get your point. So similarly, everything was highly controlled. Even a cup of tea was highly controlled. He used to make only one cup of tea for himself. अगर कोई पहुंच गया तो टी नहीं पिएगा मंजूर है, लेकिन दूसरा कप ऑफ टी नहीं बनेगा। So this is a simple example of line item budgeting. ठीक है? So this is how people also do their budgeting system. They also maintain their budgeting system. Fine. So that is one merit, and of course through this you can control your expenditure. There's no doubt about it. But the demerit is this, that you will not work for improvement in service delivery, improvement in quality. You will remain focused only on quantity, not on quality. All right, that is the biggest demerit of line item budgeting. So this system was introduced in India after India's independence, and it continued till 1960s. Now you see, after 1960s, India started studying about the budgeting system in America. अमेरिका का बजटिंग सिस्टम वर्ल्ड में सबसे बेस्ट माना जाता है। फाइन, it is understood to be the best method of budgeting system is followed in America. Let me tell you, whatever budgeting system I have mentioned over here, ये सब कहीं ना कहीं अमेरिका से बोरो किया हुआ है इंडिया में। सब, अभी आप जितना भी कानून देख रहे हैं, जितना भी मैंने आपको डिस्कस किया कॉन्सेप्ट पीडीएमए का या एफआरबीएम एक्ट का, ये सब अमेरिका से इंडिया लेके आया हुआ है। दे ऑल आर बॉर्ड फ्रॉम अमेरिका ओनली। सो बजटिंग सिस्टम इंडिया का पूरा अमेरिका इन्फ्लुएंस्ड होता है, ठीक है? बिकॉज इन अमेरिका इट इज अंडरस्टूड दैट दे फॉलो अ वेरी प्रूडेंट बजटिंग सिस्टम। फाइन, सो परफॉर्मेंस बजटिंग वाज इंट्रोड्यूस्ड इन अमेरिका फॉर द फर्स्ट टाइम, और वहीं से फिर इंडिया ने इसको बोरो किया और अपने बजटिंग सिस्टम को चेंज किया। अब इसमें देखिए क्या होता है, लेट मी टेल यू इन द सिंपलिस्टिक मैनर। बहुत कुछ होता है, बट सिंस वी हैव टू डिस्कस ओनली फ्रॉम जीएस पर्सपेक्टिव, सो you just try to understand what is this concept of performance budgeting. Now see, in the earlier system, what you used to do, you used to only classify the items and its expenditure or expenses. Now in performance budgeting, what was basically done, you also included one more criteria of making a budget, that is objectives. That is objective. So in earlier case, under line item budgeting, what was the issue कि मुझे एक चेयर खरीदना है, चेयर का बजट है 500 रुपया ही, तो एक चेयर खरीद लिया, ठीक? परफॉर्मेंस बजटिंग में क्या कहा गया कि चेयर क्यों खरीदना है ये इंपॉर्टेंट है, सिर्फ चेयर खरीदना है ये इंपॉर्टेंट नहीं है। Why you want to purchase a chair? All right, so you have to give a reason. So if reason is to, let's say कि बैठना है और let's say धूप सेकना है बैठ के, तो प्लास्टिक का चेयर ही सही है, ठीक है? लेकिन if the purpose is to, I mean, of course, sit on that and then you have to study for, let's say, long hour, for 4, 5, 6 hours continuously, The chair must be comfortable. It must be fulfilling the ergonomics, the principle of ergonomics. So it has to be comfortable, otherwise you can't sit. You can't sit even for a couple of hours, leave 4 hours, 5 hours. So let's first of all identify your objective. Objective is to study. That is my objective, study for even 5 to 6 hours per day. So if this is the objective, then this may go up. So don't consider this 500 rupees as a maximum expense. It might go off, let's say even 700 rupees. So you should be ready for that, because this is the objective. Fine. So you will go with the objectives in making your budgeting system, because what is going to be the performance of your expenditure, that is important. All right. So therefore, under this system, objectives became more important in deciding or determining the not only the number of items to be purchased, but also the number or the volume of amount to be spent in an economy. So this became a fundamental principle in India in terms of deciding the budgeting system. All right. So it continued in India, but in between, in this system also, there were very many lacunas started cropping up. Lacunas were like that. Suppose a budget allocation has been done. Let me tell you how. Allocation has been done of 700 rupees for one chair. Fine. Similarly for other items. But what you have done, you have not purchased chair. 700 rupees has been allocated to you, but you have not purchased chair this year. This year you have decided to study on your bed only. कि चेयर टेबल में पढ़ने की आदत तो पहले से भी नहीं थी, तो मैं बेड पे ही पढ़ूंगा. तो पैसा भले एलोकेट हो गया है, लेकिन आई विल नॉट स्टडी ऑन टेबल चेयर. ठीक, तो पैसा एलोकेट तो हो गया, बट यू हैव नॉट परचेज्ड इट. फाइन. सो दिस मनी विल बी ट्रांसफर टू यू नेक्स्ट मंथ ऑल्सो. तो नेक्स्ट मंथ ऑल्सो ये पैसा आपके पास ही रह गया. So next month भी ये पैसा आपके पास ही रह गया, but you have not given any account for this money. Now in this system, now you have to imagine for the entire country. So for entire country, there are various items, various you can say stream of expenditure where the money was allocated, but expenditure was not done. Money was still with the government, with the department, with the ministries, in fact. Fine. Now this system had to be also eliminated. Now, zero-based budgeting as a concept was introduced again in America, initially by a person named Peter Appire. Now, Peter A. Pire, he was actually a manager in a company. Okay. So, being a manager in an automobile company of America, he introduced this concept in American automobile company. And this concept became very popular there in America. And that is reason that why the government of America also borrowed this concept and introduced their budgeting system also on a zero-based budgeting. तो अमेरिका में बहुत ही सक्सेसफुल हो गया. इंडिया ने भी इंट्रोड्यूस किया, लेकिन इंडिया में फिर इसके अंदर लेक्यूनास दिखने शुरू हो गए, और फिर 87 में इसको विड्रॉ कर लिया गया. तो है क्या इसमें, वो थोड़ा आप समझ लीजिए. व्हाट इज जीरो बेस्ड बजटिंग? Suppose there are the list of programs, and then there are expenses on those programs, and their objectives also on those programs. Program A, 500 crore. Program B, 600 crore. Program C, 900 crores. Whatever objectives are there. Suppose this is the objective. This is the, three programs on which money has to be spent in a given financial year, let's say 2019, 2020. Fine. So overall, the money that actually has been allocated, it is basically, let's say, 9, 6, and 5. So 5, 6, 11, 9, 20. Right? So 20. So 2000, let's say 2000 crore has to be spent on any particular item. ABC program में 2000 crore spend करना था. ठीक है, 900 इस पे, 600 इस पे, 500 इस पे. ठीक है. So 2000 crore has to be spent in this particular financial year. Fine. Suppose in this year they have spent only, just take an example, 15,000 crore. All right, sorry, 1500 crore. So in that cell, 500 crore is still left. Fine. Now see, in the next financial year, again, the money has been allocated for the same program A, B, C, let's say 100 crore, 200 crore, 300 crore. Fine. So again, they have got the money in the next financial year, that is, let's say 2020, 2021. Fine. Now this year they have got 311, which means 3,000, 300, 100, 500 crore. Suppose 500 crore they have got in this financial year to continue this program only, ABC. Plus, they have also got this particular backlog money, that is 500 crore from last financial year. Are you getting a point? So 500 ये नया मिला, 500 ये पुराना भी आ गया, कंटिन्यू कर गया 2021 पे. अब इसी मिनिस्ट्री को, इसको एबीसी मिनिस्ट्री को स्कीम लॉन्च करना था, उसके पास 500 नया भी आया, 500 पहले से भी था, 1000 करोड़ हो गया उसके पास. तो फिर फाइन. Now this is how the system of Indian economy was going on. ठीक है, कि the money that is left over in the last financial year would get carry forward. Fine. Now this system was checked by zero-based budgeting. Under zero-based budgeting, this is not allowed. Under zero-based budgeting, this base of the last financial year, let's say this is the base of 500 crore, this is eliminated in the zero-based budgeting system. Fine. So if a ministry, let's say Ministry of Culture, Ministry of Tourism, Ministry of Telecommunication, all right, they have to again launch this program A, B, C, they can't do it. So program A, B, C will be also over. And the last year financial allocation will have to be spent, otherwise it will be lapsed. It will not be carried forward. So not carried forward. So it will not be carried forward. And these programs, ABC program, will be lapsed. It will be also completed. So the new financial year, let's take an example, in 2021-2022, if Indian government would have been following only zero-based budgeting, तो क्या होता? मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ कल्चर को एक नया प्रोग्राम लॉन्च करना पड़ता. वो प्रोग्राम का नाम ए नहीं होता, हो सकता है A+B प्रोग्राम हो. टेलीकम्युनिकेशन को प्रोग्राम बी नहीं लॉन्च करना, उसको होता B+C प्रोग्राम लॉन्च करे. लेट्स से टूरिज्म को वो सी नहीं करता, वो करेगा C+A प्रोग्राम. तो कुछ नया प्रोग्राम लॉन्च करेगा. ये प्रोग्राम कंटिन्यू नहीं होगा अगले फाइनेंशियल ईयर में. एंड फॉर दिस दे विल गेट द न्यू एलोकेशन. New allocation, no carry forward system. All right. Now this is called as zero-based budgeting. That your base from the last year will be completely eliminated. And then you have to do a fresh budgeting that is called as zero-based budgeting. So under this system, what are the benefits? Let's first talk about that. The benefits are basically that, of course, the person who are going to manage the fund, what we have to understand, what happens in any economy. The Ministry of Finance, it allocates money to different ministries, different departments. All right, there are departments like culture, departments like tourism, department like environment, department like telecommunication, isn't it? Department like defense, and a department like, let's say, uh, agriculture. So there are various departments, and they all have to spend money which is allocated by the Ministry of Finance. Fine. So in this zero budget budgeting system, they all will have to be accountable to their schemes. They cannot run a scheme for 10, 20 years. All right. They will have to run a scheme where they will be highly accountable and they will be achieving the target so that they can use the fund. If they are able to use the fund effectively, then the fund will be lapsed. Then the funds will be lapsed. And next year, when they will go for Ministry of Finance, or they will put up the demand to Ministry of Finance, which Ministry of Finance will put up under budgetary proposal, they will have to give the reasons, rational, why have they failed, why they could not continue, they could not achieve the target, what happened to their program A, what happened to the program B, what is their achievement. So in nutshell, through this you can understand that they will not be able to continue the same old programs. They need new programs to continue. All right, and then only they will get the new allocation in the new financial year. So in this system, the fund manager will become more accountable. It will bring more transparency in expenditure. It will ensure more effectiveness of public expenditure. It will also ensure the service delivery to the public at large. All right. So these are the benefits of zero-based budgeting. That is why precisely it was launched. It was launched in Ministry of Science and Technology. It was launched through the Ministry of Culture. It was launched through Ministry of Space, Department of Space also. So overall, what we have to understand, in this manner, the entire processes were introduced in India. It's called as zero-based budgeting. But what are the lacunas or shortcomings in this budgeting? See, the very first shortcoming is that in a developing economy like India, this concept may not be very effective. Now, in a developed economy, it is effective because there they do not need development. They need only growth. So development is a holistic concept. Growth is a unidimensional concept. कि भाई इतना 7% उनका ग्रोथ है तो 8% पहुंचा देना है, तो वो पहुंचाना उनके लिए आसान है 1 साल में. लेकिन इंडिया में ये 7 to 8% वाली बात नहीं है. यहाँ पे चौमुखी विकास करना है. That's what actually is the point. That's basically the challenge. So you have to ensure overall development of the public of this country. So which can't be achieved in 1 year. Such a vast country, huge population, in India, development can't take place in 1 year. It may take maybe a century, not even decades. So this is what precisely that in India, this was not suitable. And let me tell you, in certain respect, some aspects, in fact, there are various departments where researches are conducted for years. That's the Department of Science and Technology, Department of Space, Department of Atomic Energy, Defense. Now, there are various instruments, various tools which require a long-term experimentation to see its result. to test it on the basis of its variability or its effectiveness or its reliability. So it takes not only 1 year, maybe a decade. So for example, let's say Kaveri engine. Now, Kaveri engine is one of the, I would say, a longest project that has been run by DRDO in India. Almost for 20 years, Kaveri engine project has been launched. And probably millions of dollars must have been invested in this Kaveri engine project. All right. Now, the LCA Tejas, light combat aircraft Tejas, it actually had to run Kaveri engine. Fine. So, of course, the government of India had spent maybe millions of dollars on this. Yet we have not come out with concrete evidence that where the Kaveri engine has been so effective. तो इसका दोनों फायदा है, अगर हम पहले ही बंद कर देते तो इतना पैसा खर्च नहीं होता। नुकसान ये है कि अगर नहीं खर्च करेंगे तो पता कैसे चलेगा कि कैसे हम इंजन बना सकते हैं अपने से। तो दोनों इसका बात है। तो कहने मतलब ये है कि अगर आप आईएएस का एग्जाम नहीं देंगे तो कैसे पता चलेगा कितना टफ है। बाहर से तो सबको सब कुछ हैकेट हो ही लगता है ना। सो एग्जैक्टली व्हेन यू टेस्ट इट देन यू रियलाइज कि कितना टफ है, कितना आसान है ना। सो एग्जैक्टली दिस इज व्हाट एक्चुअली हैज बीन इट्स एडवांटेज एंड लिमिटेशन ऑफ जियो बेस्ड बजटिंग। फाइन। So this was one of the lacunas of this particular budgeting. And secondly, you can understand the country like India, where still people are not so literate, communication is not so sound, has not been so penetrative. If you keep changing a scheme's name every year, people will get confused. They will vote you out. कि पिछले बार तो बोला था कि आत्मनिर्भर भारत करना है, अब कह रहा है कि इंपोर्ट करो, एक्सपोर्ट करो। तो ऑब्वियसली पीपल विल गेट कंफ्यूज्ड कि आत्मनिर्भर बनना है पहले कि पहले इंपोर्टर एक्सपोर्टर बनना है। सो you have to give a particular time frame for the public also to understand what you want to make in India होना है कि made for India होना है या made from India होना है। So this is the reason why you cannot discontinue a program in between. And every year you can't change a program. Hannah. So that is what you have to keep in mind, that a country like India might not be able to accept it so easily that you change a program every year. You ask the department to bring a new scheme every year, new program every year. So obviously in that way, many of the schemes will not be even able to achieve 20% of its result. Fine. So that is precisely the reason that why this concept was not at all suitable for India, therefore it was finally withdrawn. ठीक है। So इसको withdraw कर लिया गया, but principally this concept remained intact in the budgeting system. जो concept था zero based budgeting का, वो departmental wise it continued. For example, we have a concept of March rush in India. ये इसका यूज है, आज भी हम जीरो बेस्ड बजटिंग यूज करते हैं, ऐसा नहीं कि हमने खत्म कर दिया है। हाँ, ये सही है कि हमने इसको नेशनल पर्सपेक्टिव से, जो हमारा बजटिंग सिस्टम है उसके कॉन्सेप्ट से हमने इसको हटा दिया है, लेकिन आज भी वी आर फॉलोइंग दिस कॉन्सेप्ट एट डिपार्टमेंटल लेवल, एंड दैट इज कॉल्ड एज, and that is signified through the concept of March rush. Fine. So what is March rush? Now, at various levels of department, let's say PWD, that is one very good example for all of you. There is a concept of March rush, and that is by 31st of March, the money allocated to this department on various developmental works, if they are not done, then the money will be lapsed. It will go back to the public exchequer. So it will go back to the public exchequer. It will not remain with the department. So therefore, in these departments, in certain departments, there is still a phenomena of March rush, where the department and the entire system, they are always, you can say, hell bound to actually spend money in any form, in any manner, by 31st of March. मैं आपको एक जीता एग्जांपल देता हूँ, आपने देखा भी होगा अपने आसपास, खासकर दिल्ली में काफी देखने को मिल जाता है. You may have seen that towards the end of अभी फरवरी मार्च चल ही रहा है, आप देखिएगा आसपास. Many pavements which are still good to walk on, उसको फिर से हटाया जाता है, उसके टाइल्स को हटाया जाता है, नए टाइल्स लगाए जाते हैं उसके ऊपर. Many pavements you must be noticing, should notice in fact in this particular practice. So many pavements you may see the new tiles are being again fixed over there. You will also surprise कि prior tiles से problem क्या था? कलर खराब था तो कलर कर देता, एक आध टाइल्स टूट गया तो नया टाइल्स लगा देता एक आध, लेकिन पूरा टाइल्स ही चेंज करना. Again the pavements are being dug and again the new tiles are being placed over there. What's the purpose in fact? So purpose is basically March rush. अगर वो नहीं खनेगा, नहीं नया टाइल्स लगाएगा, तो पैसा चला जाएगा पब्लिक एक्सचेकर के पास, सरकार के पास वापस, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ फाइनेंस के पास पैसा वापस चला जाएगा. तो डिपार्टमेंट अगर खर्च नहीं कर पाएगी तो दो बदनामी होगी. एक, डिपार्टमेंट इफेक्टिव नहीं है, पैसा सही से खर्च नहीं किया, और तीसरा बेनिफिट ये होगा इंजीनियर्स को कि उसमें से कुछ कमीशन मिल जाएगा, खर्च हो जाएगा. तो so obviously, I mean, these are the very obvious practices going on in India. If the money is spent, there is a commission fixed with the contractors, with the engineers. So if contractors are receiving, let's say, 100 rupees, at least 20 rupees will go into the pocket of the engineers who are going to pass the bill. Now this is called a March rush in India. Fine. So this practice also has to be controlled in India. Fine. So we'll keep it till here only. Tomorrow we'll complete this budgeting system altogether. ठीक है? तो आज इतना ही रखते हैं जीरो बेस्ड बजटिंग के बारे में. कल हम लोग आगे इसके चर्चा आगे बढ़ाएंगे. ठीक है? तो कल कंप्लीट करेंगे इस स्टोरी को. Fine. If you have any specific question, you can ask. Then we can conclude the class today.
Sir, could you please share the link of today's class? My network was not stable, so I got disconnected a lot of times.
Okay. I'll do that.
Thank you
I
so
will
much.
share that. Yeah. Fine. Then I'll see you tomorrow. Fine. So see you tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll discuss it. Continue it. Take care. Bye. Take care.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, sir.